We pick up where we left off, and Bede makes himself known. Bede asks if anyone remembers who he is. He is the challenger who was disqualified from participating in the World Championships. The one who was endorsed by the chairman himself. Murmuring fills the stadium, and Chairman Rose is not happy to see Bede crashing such a massive event, him ordering a red-haired woman to take care of the situation. However, back down on the pitch, Leon silences everyone, before allowing Bede to continue. Bede exclaims that he has a score to settle with Ash Ketchum. He knows that it's against the rules, but he'll do so nonetheless. He'll even stake his career as a trainer on this very match. All eyes are on Ash, who chooses to accept the battle. Leon then personally endorses it, saying that as Ash's first opponent in the first round, he will not battle until Bede can prove whatever he may need to. Preparations are made, moving anything from the opening ceremony off the field in order for Ash and Bede to battle. When it's time, the two meet in the center of the pitch. Bede then states that after Ash showed up, nothing went his way. He was stripped of the ability to participate in the World Championships. And the chairman, the man who raised him, disowned him and tossed him aside. Then some strange old lady dragged him into a boot camp for becoming the next fairy-type gym leader. She covered him in pink and had him do quizzes and battles with fairy-type Pokemon every single day without end. He even had to help some idiot train his coughing. But his will hadn't been broken yet. After everything he'd been through, he was going to prove himself here and now. So the battle begins. The battle is a 4-on-4, starting with Ash's Gible facing Bede's Mawile. The two bite-happy Pokemon put up a fight against each other. Even at a disadvantage, Ash's Gible is able to show off what it had been able to learn since the end of Ash's Sinnoh journey. Bede's still no pushover, however with a strong hit from Earth Power, Gible manages to take the win. Gardevoir comes out next, quickly dispatching Gible with a dazzling gleam. Next up is Ash's Muk, who is able to take quite a few hits from Gardevoir, while dishing out powerful attacks of its own. However, Gardevoir is able to defeat Muk as well. This makes Ash excited, as he knows exactly who to bring out next, calling out Galarian Darmanitan. Bede smirks, remembering Ash's Galarian form from their last battle. Bede calls for another dazzling gleam. However, Ash has an immediate counter for this, calling for Galarian Darmanitan to spin while using Flare Blitz. This, of course, is the return of Ash's counter shield technique, which catches Bede off guard, allowing for Galarian Darmanitan to strike with another Flare Blitz and finish Gardevoir off. Next out is Galarian Rapidash, who attacks with some strong physical attacks like High Horsepower and Play Rough, while also being able to heal itself with Morning Sun, resulting in most damage it takes from Galarian Darmanitan to result in nothing. Just before Galarian Rapidash can take down Galarian Darmanitan, the Zen Charm Pokemon is able to pull off a reversal, resulting in a double knockout. Now the two are only down to one Pokemon each, and so they both send them out. Lucario enters the battlefield, flaring its aura immediately. Hatterene also enters. Seeing the aura emitted from Lucario, it immediately tenses with suppressed rage. Some people in the stands begin to feel their heads aching soon after Hatterene's entrance. The two Pokemon stare each other down for a while, before they rush at each other. The two clash, with Lucario's Meteor Mash being pushed against by Hatterene's Tentacle. They break apart from each other, and Hatterene quickly strikes with Mystical Fire. Lucario is blown back, but recovers from the blow, and uses Double Team in order to make multiple clones of itself in order to attack, firing off multiple Aura Spheres all at once. Hatterene takes a lot of damage from it, but I also seem to only infuriate it more. It's at this moment Bede decides to pull out a final trick up his sleeve. Revealing a Dynamax band, he calls for Hatterene to Gigantamax. Once the Pokemon known as the Raging Goddess enters the battle, it immediately strikes with G-Max's Smite. Bede smirks, thinking the secondary effect will give him the win, only to find that Lucario is completely fine, thanks to its ability, Inner Focus. However, this does put Ash in a difficult situation. He calls for Lucario to get up to G-Max Hatterene using Meteor Mash. But whenever Lucario attempts, the Aura Pokemon is swatted away like a fly. It tries over and over, but without even using an attack, G-Max Hatterene is able to knock back Lucario. Even when Lucario tries to use its Aura Sense to predict the Gigantamax Pokemon's next move, Bede is able to get his ace Pokemon around this and stop Lucario from getting a single hit in. Ash is at a stalemate. If he doesn't Mega Evolve, Lucario might not have enough power to get past Hatterene. But if he does Mega Evolve, a G-Max Smite will result in Lucario's confusion. He and Lucario look at each other. Lucario's aura flares, and through this, Ash gets an idea. He calls for Lucario to make a giant Aura Sphere. Flaring its aura and raising its arms above its head, Lucario begins to create a massive Aura Sphere. The energy infuriates Hatterene, and so Bede decides to call for Max Flare. A massive ball of fire is launched towards the Aura Sphere, but Lucario keeps steady. The two attacks clash, and Lucario calls back to Ash, who activates his Keystone. In a flash of light, Lucario Mega Evolves. With the influx of power, the Aura Sphere grows larger, overtaking the Max Flare. Lucario launches its G-Max Aura Sphere. As the blue ball of energy slowly moves closer to the Gigantamax Pokemon, Bede calls for his partner to use Max Mind Storm. The psychic energy forces the G-Max Aura Sphere back, but as Hatterene is focused on it, Mega Lucario strikes. Launching itself with a few Double Team clones, Mega Lucario lands a Blaze Kick against G-Max Hatterene. The G-Max Pokemon loses focus, ending its attack, and causing it to revert from its Gigantamax state. The energy from Max Mind Storm, Max Flare, and G-Max Aura Sphere collapse in on themselves, exploding with enough force to knock back both Pokemon and their trainers. When everything settles, Bede, Ash, and their Pokemon get back up. Cheers fill the stadium as the combatants get back into their places. Bede chuckles, stating that he's glad this will be a battle he goes all out on. Win or lose, he'll have shown everyone the power of fairy types. In the stands, people cry out, telling Bede not to quit being a trainer. After a battle like this, they want to see Bede continue on battling. He can't give up and retire here. Bede groans, exclaiming that this isn't what he planned. People keep cheering, and he tells Ash that this is his fault. Everyone cheering like this, telling him to keep going. Still, if he's going to go out, it'll be on his own terms. So he tells Ash to keep the fight going. Ash is caught off guard by this, but he and Lucario agree, so they get back into it. Mega Lucario and Hatterene rush at each other, clashing with attack after attack. Even without being in its Gigantamax state, Hatterene puts up a good fight, able to counter Lucario's Blaze Kicks, Aura Spheres, and Meteor Mashes with its powerful Psychics, Dazzling Gleams, and Mystical Fires. As the battle keeps going, Bede starts to smile. The more he and Ash clash, the more fired up he gets. He can't explain it. He was furious with Ash, and yet being able to battle again was making him forget all about it. Still, he couldn't keep this up forever, so as Mega Lucario rushes in for another Meteor Mash, he calls for his final move, Misty Explosion. The powerful explosion of pink mist knocks out Hatterene, but it also has enough power to knock Lucario into Ash, the Aura Pokemon being taken out of the battle as well. Bede calls back Hatterene, and says that Ash wins this one, only confusing the Alolan champion. Bede then says that with everyone cheering him on like this, he'll just have to continue his training as Galar's fairy gym leader. Though with his talent, he'll be able to surpass Miss Opal in no time. He doesn't say another word to Ash, choosing to leave. Many people cheer, hearing that Bede will continue battling, and Ash gets to his feet. As Bede leaves, Ash calls out to him, saying that he wants to battle again someday. Bede doesn't look back, but a smile forms on his face before he makes his exit. After a climactic battle, Ash is given some extra prep time. Even though he already battled, he had to get back out there to face Leon. So, he makes a call. Professor Oak's cousin Samson picks up the phone, having answered from Professor Oak's lab. He tells Ash everything is ready, even his Alolan Pokemon are there. So Ash decides his team of 6 for facing against Leon. Minutes later, Ash and Leon are on the pitch once again. The cheers for the two champions are almost equally as loud. But still, Leon seems to be the fan favorite. Leon tells Ash he's been looking forward to this battle, but he's not going to hold back, even in the first round. Ash shares that the feeling is mutual, and the two decide to not waste any more time. At the referee's signal, the battle begins. Leon starts in a surprising manner, sending in his Dragapult, while Ash brings out his Kingler. Kingler shows how much it's grown since the last time Ash used it in battle. But unfortunately, Dragapult proves too fast for it. So Ash tries to even the odds, bringing out Swellow next. Swellow seems like a completely different Pokemon to Brock, May, and Max, as they watch it use a practically entirely new moveset against Dragapult, with moves like Heat Wave and Air Slash. Even when Swellow gets burned by Dragapult's Will-O-Wisp, that only seems to make the bird stronger. Still, Dragapult takes Swellow down. Sceptile is out next, proving itself comparable to Dragapult's speed. It manages to do a lot to Dragapult as well. It goes in for a final Leaf Blade, but just as it strikes Dragapult, the Dragon type fires off a point-blank Draco Meteor, launching Sceptile into the air along with the attack. As the Draco Meteors come down, Sceptile comes with it, landing completely unconscious. However, after the damage from Kingler, Swellow, and Sceptile, Dragapult has been knocked out as well. Ash decides to switch up tactics a bit, bringing out Gengar. Leon, on the other hand, declares it's time for his newest partner to make its debut on the battlefield. The crowd knows what this means, as the announcement and reveal of Leon's new team member was global news. So for the first time in battle, the High King of Bountiful Harvests, Calyrex, enters. Ash has Gengar Gigantamax, thinking this will allow for more power and resilience in battle. Meanwhile, Leon has Calyrex set up Sword Stance. Gengar attempts to attack with G-Max Terror, but before the attack can land, Calyrex uses Leech Seed, meaning after taking the hit, it simply saps away some of Gengar's health to heal itself. Then, Calyrex strikes critically with a powerful Glacial Lance. The attack boost is enough to do in Gengar, so Gigantamax fades, and Gengar has been taken out of the battle. Ash decides to send out Infernape next. When the Fire Monkey comes into the battlefield, at first it's confused by the fact it isn't facing Leon's Charizard. Still, Infernape isn't one to back down from a fight, and so it goes in for a full-on assault. It clashes with Calyrex a few times, managing to pull through despite taking powerful hits from Glacial Lance. However, despite all the super effective attacks, Calyrex stands tall, able to keep fighting regardless. Infernape gets pushed to the point of activating Blaze, which starts to put Calyrex on the back foot. However, after a clash between Flare Blitz and Glacial Lance, Infernape pushes itself a little too far, and succumbs to recoil and exhaustion. Calyrex's steed lets out a cry, as a powerful aura flares up around the king. Ash only has one option left to send onto the field, so he allows Pikachu to take over the fight. Pikachu gets onto the battlefield, and the fight continues. Both Pokemon race across the battlefield, Pikachu trying not to get hit by Calyrex's icy attacks. Eventually, Pikachu gets in a good hit with Iron Tail, causing Calyrex's steed to fall into one knee. But Pikachu isn't fast enough to escape a Glacial Lance. Pikachu is sent flying down, gravely injured by the singular attack. Ash is completely stunned by the power of Calyrex. Pikachu struggles to stay in the battle, getting back up and striking with one last quick attack. But after that, Pikachu falls. Calyrex looks a little winded, as if one last push after that could make the King of Bountiful Harvests fall. But it ultimately doesn't matter. The battle is called in Leon's favor. The world champion calling back Calyrex with mixed feelings. He both looks surprised that Ash's Pokemon almost took out Calyrex, but also disappointed that the battle ended here. Before the two leave, he simply states that Charizard was hoping to battle Pikachu again. Holding Pikachu in his arms, Ash leaves the battlefield, without uttering anything more. When he gets to the locker rooms, he and Iris share a small exchange. Before she has to leave, Iris tells Ash that she's going to win her battle. Ash gives her a smile, but it's clear his thoughts are elsewhere. Once Iris leaves, Lance sits down with the Alola champion. He asks if Ash is bummed because he lost. Ash nods, but that's not really what was bothering him. He says that he wasn't completely focused on the battle at hand. He was really looking forward to battling Leon, but there was still something else on his mind too. Lance asks what that would be, to which Ash points out Giovanni. Lance nods, but then tells Ash not to worry. When the 10-year-old trainer tries to say why he can't do that, Lance says he already knows. The G-Men and the International Police have been keeping a close eye on Team Rocket. Recently, they had gained reason to believe Giovanni was the leader of the organization. But currently, they can't do anything. There's already people investigating what Team Rocket might be up to, but they can't out Giovanni during such an important event. Otherwise, it'll cause mass pandemonium. Ash asks what they can do about it, to which Lance says they'll just have to knock him out of the tournament. If he's participating in it, then it must be a major part of his plan. Lance assures Ash that it'll be alright. He needs to focus on battling to his fullest, and having fun while doing it. Ash nods, thanking Lance for the talk. He also wishes the two-region champion luck in his battle. So Lance thanks him. The next matches come and go. Iris versus Cynthia will go slightly similar to the original. Iris puts in a lot of effort, and actually shows a lot of growth compared to her previous fight with Cynthia. It ends up getting down to a one-on-one, with Haxorus and Garchomp facing each other. Cynthia commends Iris for how much she's grown as a battler, and decides to use her secret weapon. For the first time ever, she reveals that she has access to Mega Evolution. Mega Evolving Garchomp, she turns the tables quickly on Iris. In a final clash between Giga Impact and Scale Shot, Mega Garchomp comes out on top. Cynthia is declared the winner, and after the battle, Ash comforts Iris over the loss. When it comes to Alon versus Steven, the two are actually fairly even in the battle. Both utilize a similar Sandstorm-related strategy, and even with the gap in ranks, like Iris and Cynthia, Alon also proves himself to be a very powerful battler, showing his team has actually changed a bit since Kalos. We of course get a clash between Mega Charizard X and Metagross. And I'm going to say that just barely, Alon is able to take out Mega Metagross with a Blast Burn, and is declared the winner. The two shake hands, with Steven admitting he's very impressed by how far Alon has come since they last battled each other. The battle also leaves the crowd in awe of how well the two fought. Even with Alon getting the win, the battle doesn't take away that Steven is a very powerful and reputable trainer. The final battle arrives. Lance versus Giovanni. Both walk onto the pitch, with Lance acknowledging the crowd's cheers, which is starkly contrasted by Giovanni completely ignoring the audience, as if they aren't even there. Once both are in position, Lance gets more serious, knowing that he needs to defeat Giovanni here and now. Every loss this man takes puts him behind on his plans. So once the battle begins, Lance sends out his first Pokemon, Aerodactyl. Giovanni barely pays this any mind, before his first Pokemon comes onto the battlefield. At first, it seems like a sweep. After Aerodactyl is taken out, Lance's Gyarados takes out Giovanni's Pokemon one by one. After using Dragon Dance to set up, and gaining a boost from its Moxie ability after every KO. Lance is suspicious though, as this feels a little too easy. It felt like Giovanni might be simply throwing the match. But why? Giovanni is brought down to his last Pokemon. With a stone-cold expression on his face, he pulls out a Master Ball. To the surprise and confusion of most of the audience, Mewtwo enters the field, clad in a set of restrictive armor. It doesn't take long for Goh, Misty, and Brock to recognize the Pokemon. Soon, all of Ash's friends and family realize just how dire the situation really is. Meanwhile, not even the announcer knows what to do here. As far as he or anyone involved in the production side of the World Championships knows, Giovanni had sent out a Pokemon completely unknown by the world. From the point Mewtwo appears on the battlefield, the battle is flipped on its head. One by one. No matter what Lance tries to do, his Pokemon are taken out by the legendary Pokemon. They get in some good hits here and there, but Giovanni doesn't even attempt to have Mewtwo dodge in the first place. Lance is brought down to Dragonite, which he Dynamaxes, and yet even that doesn't help much. With a final Ice Beam, Lance is utterly defeated. He now knows what Giovanni was doing. The champion of both Kanto and Johto was being toyed with. He was being made an example of. The crowd doesn't even find the battle enjoyable anymore. They just watch, unable to collectively process what just happened to the previous tournament's runner-up. Giovanni calls Mewtwo back. He gives a brief look out into the audience, before looking up into the booth, in which Chairman Rose is watching the events unfold. The second round is then announced, being the final round of the day. The matchups are announced as Alon versus Lance, Ash versus Giovanni, Iris versus Steven, and Leon versus Cynthia. A brief intermission is called, giving the Masters 8 time to prepare for their next battles, and the audience time to go buy refreshments. Ash decides to quickly go to the phone, calling Samson Oak in order to switch out his Pokemon. The two discuss strategy, with Ash stating that he's only worried about one Pokemon, and that's Mewtwo. Samson Oak suggests some Pokemon to Ash, as there are a few at the lab, who, after watching the matches, especially want to get in on the action. Ash decides to select 5 of them to handle the 2 Pokemon Ash knows about. But the 6th gives him a little trouble at first. However, he decides to choose Thwackey, as it's a Pokemon that originally belonged to Team Rocket. At first, Thwackey seems a little uncertain. However, Ash gives Thwackey a bit of a pep talk, saying that he knows the 2 of them can do it. So Thwackey agrees, now seeming excited to battle again. The intermission ends, and the battles begin. Alon and Lance go first, and the 2 battle fiercely. They go back and forth quite a bit, with Lance commending Alon for his strength. The battle ends up being a clash between the 2 Charizards. Alon's Mega Charizard X uses Flare Blitz to rush through an overheat from Lance's Charizard, and after striking with it and following up with a Thunder Punch, Alon's Charizard comes out on top. The 2 meet in the center, shaking hands before they part ways. Ash and Giovanni then enter. Giovanni looks at Ash with a stone-cold expression, which does make Ash a little nervous. He looks into the audience, seeing his friends and family, which does bring him a little comfort. He takes a deep breath, and does a few stretches before the battle begins. Ash starts with Seismitoad, and Giovanni immediately sends out Mewtwo. Ash calls for Hydro Pump, but Mewtwo takes the hit while using Calm Mind. Ash then tries to go for Supersonic, but Mewtwo cuts through it with Ice Beam, and instantly knocks out Seismitoad. Out next is Scraggy, which actually gets a small reaction out of Giovanni. Mewtwo goes for another Ice Beam, but Scraggy manages to dodge the attack by getting low, before striking with High Jump Kick. The attack strikes, but doesn't do much to Mewtwo. Ash calls for Knockoff, but Mewtwo knocks out Scraggy with Drain Punch before he can land another blow. Ash sighs before calling back Scraggy. He then calls out Staraptor, who is able to attack much faster than Seismitoad and Scraggy. Staraptor lands a Brave Bird and a Double Edge, before Mewtwo takes it out with an Ice Beam. Ash then brings out Torterra. With a snap of the fingers, Mewtwo fires another Ice Beam. At first, the turtle seems like it'll be too slow to avoid the attack, but then Ash calls for Rock Polish. Torterra's body sparks with a light blue energy, before Torterra is gone in the blink of an eye. This actually catches Giovanni off guard, as Torterra manages to get behind Mewtwo and strikes the legend with a powerful wood hammer. Mewtwo wheels around, about to fire off another Ice Beam, but Torterra uses this new speed to dodge and strike with another wood hammer. Mewtwo tries to get ready to use Drain Punch, but slamming its feet into the ground, Torterra starts an Earthquake. However, Mewtwo leaps into the air, avoiding the attack. Mewtwo then drops down, but Torterra avoids the attack with ease. Mewtwo quickly fires off another Ice Beam, but Torterra counters with Stone Edge, attempting to block the attack. Unfortunately though, the Ice Beam is too strong, and ends up striking against Torterra, knocking it out. Ash is down to 2 Pokemon, and chooses to send out Lucario. He doesn't waste any more time, choosing to Mega Evolve Lucario. The two had fought Mewtwo before, but they were stronger now. Lucario goes for Double Team, avoiding another Ice Beam. Some of the clones then launch Lucario, allowing it to strike with a Blaze Kick. Mewtwo lands a Drain Punch, but Lucario gets back up, striking with a Meteor Mash. Mewtwo goes for another Ice Beam, but Ash calls for Lucario to run. Lucario races across the battlefield, the Ice Beam freezing the ground behind the Mega Pokemon. Ash then has Lucario leap into the air before firing off an Aura Sphere. The attack hits Mewtwo dead on, before Lucario comes flying in with another Blaze Kick. Ash then tells Lucario to strike with back-to-back Meteor Mashes. Lucario tries to pummel Mewtwo, but the protective armor seems to lessen most of the damage. Giovanni doesn't even tell Mewtwo to dodge or counter for a while though, as if he's testing the armor's durability, or even simply because he doesn't care. Lucario keeps going, until a crack forms in the helmet. Ash notices this, and then tells Lucario to force an Aura Sphere down on him. However, Mewtwo fires an Ice Beam, which blows Lucario back over to Ash. Ash asks Lucario if he can still battle. The Aura Pokemon looks back at his trainer, nodding before slowly getting back up. Ash smiles, and it's at this moment that Giovanni decides to say something to the young trainer. He tells the Alola champion to give up. He saw what happened to Lance, so he should just throw in the towel now while he has the chance. However, Ash declares that he's not going to give up here. He still has 2 Pokemon, and with his partners by his side, he'll do whatever he can to beat him. He won't run away, and his resolve won't be broken here. Giovanni decides to wrap this up, calling for another Ice Beam, so Ash calls for Lucario to fight back with Meteor Mash. As the icy attack flies in, Lucario's fists glow with a steely energy, which Lucario strikes the attack with. It puts all its might into holding off the attack. Lucario doesn't want to give up here either. Suddenly, the energy of Meteor Mash begins to grow, and then it shoots out from Lucario, pushing back against the Ice Beam. The 2 beams struggle against each other, but Lucario wins out, overwhelming the Ice Beam, and managing to strike the cracked portion of Mewtwo's helmet. Lucario then falls down onto one knee again, which the crowd watches in complete silence. It doesn't take long for Ash to recognize what attack Lucario had just used. He had seen Raihan use it. The most powerful Steel-type move, Steel Beam. However, it came at a cost, as Lucario collapses soon after. Ash and Lucario look up, seeing the shattered portion of Mewtwo's helmet. Where a chunk of it once was, they can now see part of Mewtwo's face, uncovered thanks to the Steel Beam. Ash then gets a sensation. He can feel Mewtwo calling out to him. Lucario seems to feel it too. They can hear Mewtwo trying to say 2 simple words. help me. Lucario tries to get back up after hearing Mewtwo's call for help, but it's no use. The Steel Beam left Lucario too exhausted, and the Aura Pokemon slips into unconsciousness. Ash is brought down to one last Pokemon. He pulls out the dark-colored Rocket Ball and sends out Thwackey. The Galarian Monkey sees its opponent, and at first, Thwackey seems ready to go. But then its eyes lock onto Giovanni. In an instant, Thwackey freezes up, as the man seems to recognize it. Giovanni then orders Mewtwo to use Psy Strike. Mewtwo builds up a ball of psychic energy in front of it, one which quickly grows bigger and bigger. Ash calls for Thwackey to use Grassy Glide, but the grass starter doesn't move. He calls out to Thwackey again, asking what's wrong, but Thwackey is completely frozen, paralyzed by fear. Mewtwo fires the attack, and in an instant, it's over. Giovanni claims another victory. Up in the stands, the Rocket Trio sees this. They had taken seats, dressed as their radio show alter egos, using the opportunity to make content, while also taking it as an easy cover. However, upon seeing Thwackey faint, they can hardly bear the sight. Even Morpeko, who had been munching on all sorts of treats throughout the matches, stops upon seeing a friend in such a dire situation. This was the first time Thwackey lost after they gave it over to Ash. And of all people to lose to, it was the person it feared the most. Not only that, but Giovanni's way of beating Thwackey was cold and ruthless. They knew he could be like that, but this time felt worse than any other. Were they really just going to let him treat Thwackey this way? The other battles continue after that. Iris vs. Steven takes place next, with Unova Trainer putting in just as much effort as she did against Cynthia. Her Haxorus somewhat steals the show, carrying quite a few of the battles, and getting quite a few victories from it. However, it ends up being a clash of Lapras versus Mega Metagross, and Steven manages to push his partner enough to get one final Meteor Mash, before being struck with a final G-Max Resonance. Both Pokemon go down because of this, so the result is a tie. The final battle of the day was one that the crowd was really excited for. Leon versus Cynthia. Both trainers had fought in the previous Masters 8 tournament's semi-finals, where despite Cynthia being world champion, Leon managed to pull through and claim victory in order to meet Lance in the finals. However, Cynthia had been training since that day, so the battle seems to be in either trainer's favor. The battle begins, and both trainers seem to be pretty even. When Cynthia takes a Pokemon out, Leon comes back and takes out one of hers. When Leon's Pokemon gets a good hit, Cynthia just turns around and strikes back even harder, only for Leon to attack even harder than that. In the end, it ends up coming down to Calyrex facing off against Mega Garchomp. Both show off very powerful attacks, with Mega Garchomp using Sandstorm to activate its Sand Force ability. In the end though, both Pokemon collapse, resulting in another tie that makes the crowd go wild. With this, the first day of the Masters 8 tournament is officially over. Ash meets up with his friends and family, bummed out over both his losses. They all can tell that it's eating up at him. However, Kiawe doesn't like seeing Ash look like this. He's not even going to give Ash the chance to fall back into a depressed state. He tells Ash that he's the Alola champion, and he's gotta act like it. He can't let these battles get him down. Ash gives a slight smile and nods, but says that it's less about the losses, and more about what happened. Kiawe realizes he put the cart before the Mudsdale, and lets Ash speak. Ash tells them about how he heard Mewtwo's plea for help. Mewtwo's hurting right now, and he couldn't do anything. Not only that, there's now a problem with Thwacky. Chloe asks what he means, to which Ash pulls out Thwacky's Pokeball. When he tries to open it, it doesn't, showing that Thwacky's refusing to come out. He admits that he thought Thwacky would be the best Pokemon for defeating Giovanni, since it was Team Rocket that gave him Thwacky in the first place. Since Thwacky left Team Rocket, it hadn't lost a single battle, officially at least. It got close in Kalos, but never fainted. Iris brings up how her Excadrill was similar, choosing not to fight for a while after losing to Drayden. Ash recalls that story too, so he wonders if it's a similar situation. Before he can say anything else, though, Oleana walks up. She tells them that she wanted to inform the Masters 8 members, Ash and Iris, that they have been invited to a dinner with the rest of the Masters 8. Ash and Iris both look at each other a little uncertain, but they agree to go. The two are taken by Oleana up to Rose Tower, where once again Ash is brought to the restaurant inside where he first spoke with Chairman Rose. It's there that the two meet back up with every member of the Masters 8. Ash and Iris both don't know how to feel about sitting and breaking bread with Giovanni at the dinner table. But when the feast prepared for them is brought in, both find it difficult to resist. Chairman Rose sits down at the head of the table, before thanking them all for coming. There's been more buzz about this season of the World Championships than ever before. Part of this is thanks, of course, to Leon and his unbeatable record, as well as his new Pokemon Calyrex. However, of course, this tournament wouldn't be possible without the rest of them. He actually points out Alon, Iris, and Ash, who are having a lot of buzz around them. This surprises the three, and so Chairman Rose elaborates. At the moment, the top 3 trainers in the world are Leon, Cynthia, and Steven. Fans of the World Championships have been raving about these 3 for quite a while, calling them the Big 3. It was a cute little nickname, however, now Alon, Iris, and Ash were being grouped together as well. The 3 of them had been making waves due to their battles, and it was the first time in the history of the World Championships that 3 somewhat unknown trainers had made it to the Masters 8 at the same time. Even regions outside of the 8 represented currently in this season's Masters 8 knew who the 3 were. Chairman Rose had even heard of them being called the New Gen 3, as it seems some people think that the 3 of them could work their way up to overthrowing the current Big 3. Although the first round did show the current level that they were at compared to the top 3 in the world. The trio aren't sure how to respond to this. Part of them felt like a compliment, but the last bit seemed like an insult due to the fact Ash and Iris couldn't beat Leon and Cynthia. Chairman Rose sees their weird looks and apologizes, saying he simply wanted to make small talk during the meal. He then insists that everyone enjoy the food. However, not long after, he does mention that he'd like to have a word with Leon and Giovanni about business. Leon respectively argues this, saying that the food just got here, and all the battles have left him starving. A sentiment that Ash can't help but agree with. However, Chairman Rose convinces Leon, saying it'll only take a minute. With that, the top and 5th ranked trainers both leave the restaurant. Steven says something about how it seems like Leon can only think of Pokemon and food sometimes. To which Iris notes that sounds a lot like someone else she knows, elbowing Ash. The group all chuckle at the lighthearted jab, but at the same time, they all secretly have their suspicions over why Rose wants to speak with Leon and Giovanni. When the three are at the top of Rose Tower, Leon asks what this is about. Rose doesn't say anything at first, choosing to look out at the bustling city of Winden below. Rose talks about how beautiful Winden is, to which Leon can't help but agree. The prosperity of the Galar region made them both who they were today. Rose was able to rise out of poverty and establish Macrocosmos, which allowed him to then become the head of the Galar League and the World Championships. Through that, he found Leon and shaped him into the unbeatable champion he is today. Leon was now a hero to the people of Galar, especially to his younger brother. Leon once again asks why this meeting was called, and what Giovanni was doing here. Rose answers his question with a question. He asks what Leon would do to ensure the prosperity of Galar would go on forever. Leon thought about it for a moment, and then stated that he already believes he's doing everything he can by being a champion who can entertain people with exciting battles. Rose chuckles before saying that there's still more he can do. Leon is only confused by this statement, asking what that would be. Rose then tells Leon a story. The darkest day, what is considered the most difficult part of the Galar region's history, was actually the source of what made Galar the way it is today. The darkest day scattered Galar particles all across the region, allowing them to create the new Dynamax bands and harness the Dynamax phenomenon. Of course, Leon already knew that part, as he was there for the creation and testing of the Dynamax band that was done alongside Professor Magnolia. However, Rose tells them that before they discovered Galar particles, the Galar region had to find different resources. Back when the Galar region was still new, and Mustard was beginning his reign as the unbeatable champion of their new league. Like many other regions, coal was the main source of energy production. However, coal always comes with a price. Many tragedies struck because of the mining that needed to be done for this resource. Things such as miner's lung and mine collapses were highly common and resulted in many children losing their fathers, leaving them in poverty and homeless. This was why Macrocosmos was made, to ensure that would never happen again. However, recently they had made a discovery that the energy they had been using that had been sustaining them for so long was very much finite. If Galar continued to improve and expand like it already had been, it would be a matter of years before they ran out, and had to resort back to the old ways, starting the cycle all over again. Luckily, he had found out that there was a way to not only fix the problem, but create an infinite energy source that would also make Galar a more advanced society. They would never have to worry about Galar's prosperity again. In order to obtain the things he needed, he did have to make some unsavory business deals, but soon they would be able to enact Project Eternal, and the Galar region's security would be ensured for an eternity. Leon has mixed feelings on what he's heard. Part of him agrees with Rose. However, he doesn't like the shady dealings. So he makes that known, saying that with what he's heard from the other members of the Masters 8, he doesn't think it's a good idea to work with Giovanni anymore. He doesn't personally know Giovanni. However, from what he's heard, it doesn't sound like Giovanni would want the same things as them. Giovanni speaks up, assuring that his dealings with Rose were simply business-related. He offered his services, but if there's no need for his resources at this point, then he will withdraw them. Rose states that the additional hands, both in security and research, had been helpful, but he does suppose that once Project Eternal is underway, then their partnership could expire, or at least be renegotiated. After all, from the looks of it, Giovanni had given away his gift to another. Giovanni says that the boy was not given that Pokemon with his approval. It was simply the work of his subordinates who lacked many things, including intellect. However, he has heard the Pokemon has been doing well in his hands. Rose says it doesn't matter, before asking if Leon's mind has been put at ease. However, Leon says no. He still doesn't like who Rose has decided to work with, and knows there were other options. Rose says there weren't, as Macrocosmos only could do so much on its own. Leon then asks about the former champion before him. Surely, if the two of them worked together, they would have accomplished the same things, right? After all, it was Rose's own brother. Rose snaps at him, never to bring up his brother again. His younger brother was a delinquent who ran away from home. Even if the League used to regard him as a strong trainer, he was still the same coward who vanished from the League just like he vanished from his family. Silence falls among the group. Rose then apologizes for getting so angry with Leon. He tells Leon he can return to dinner if he'd like. They could discuss Project Eternal another time. Leon thanks Rose before leaving. The chairman sighs before looking back out at Wyndham. He tells Giovanni that he may leave as well. Giovanni nods, but before he leaves, he tells Rose that he's sure the fruits of their labor will come eventually. Rose thanks him for the kind words, before they part ways. We cut to Hammerlock, where it seems Chairman Rose is heading inside the reactor. He's joined by 3 other people. When members of Macrocosmos see him, they let him go on his way. Strangely, though, he tells them all to leave for the night and have the rest of the night off. Some are confused by this and ask why he's letting them go so early. Rose simply says that Leon's battles tonight have put him in such a good mood that he figured he'd let them go celebrate for the night. The employees leave after that, although one does question why Rose is working tonight instead of joining the Masters 8 for their dinner, celebrating a successful opening day. Once the 4 are in front of the reactor, they see what looks like an egg with a large crystal nearby it. The 3 take off their coats, revealing the red R's emblazoned on each of them. The first one, known as Archer, exclaims that this is the Legend Plate, and the so-called Eternatus that Giovanni wanted them to look at. The red-haired woman nodded, stating that once Giovanni gives the signal, they were to wake up Eternatus. Chairman Rose states that Eternatus looks kinda freaky looking inside that egg, to which the green-haired man nearby them tells him to take off that ridiculous disguise already, addressing him as Petrol. Petrol groans before ripping away the disguise, revealing a man with purple hair to be his true identity. Archer addresses the other one as Proton, and tells the two of them to pipe down and monitor Eternatus. If something were to go wrong, and they'd have to awaken it early, the two of them had to make sure to do it, while he and Ariana were surveying the tournament, and sticking close to Rose as well. Petrol jokes about how Giovanni didn't have someone like his secretary doing his work. Even someone like Pierce could handle this as well. However, Ariana once again reminds him that both Pierce and the Matori Matrix are heading up squads all around Winden. The entirety of Team Rocket had to be ready for when Giovanni gave the word. Then, they could truly strike and show the world just who is going to rule over them from now on. And that's where we'll be leaving things right now. So what do you guys think? Do you think Ash will be able to come back from these two devastating losses? What do you think will make it to the semifinals of the World Championship? And do you think Team Rocket will succeed in taking over Chairman Rose's plans for Project Eternal? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.